ये तकनीक हमारी गति को बढ़ा सकती है, तकनीक हमारे खुशहाल और सुरक्षित जीवन का आधार नहीं बन सकती। नदी में कोई डूब रहा होगा तो किसी न किसी को बचाना पड़ेगा, तकनीक जाकर बचा नहीं सकती। माध्यम तो मनुष्य ही होगा, उसकी सामर्थ्य होगी, उसका परिश्रम होगा।
Cooking in smoky kitchens is violence against women. No more cooking in smoky kitchens. अब धुआं में खाना नहीं बनेगा, अब आप कुछ भी बना के दो।
Time is just right to mainstream the concept of social sustainability, and every decision that is taken should be in the light of social sustainability.
तो मेरा सभी का यही कहना है कि ऐसी जगहों पर स्ट्रीट लाइट की व्यवस्था की जाए जहां पर वाहन नहीं हो, वहां पर वाहन की उपलब्धि की जाए। सभी को धन्यवाद।
1 मिनट में 20 बच्चे पैदा होते हैं, जिन्हें हमें 2000 लीटर फ्रेश पानी चाहिए। एक दिन में 28 लाख लीटर हमको पानी चाहिए। साल भर में 1.5 अरब लीटर पानी चाहिए। पानी कम रहा है, जनसंख्या बढ़ रही है।
कि कौन सा एक ऐसा हम कंपोनेंट आइडेंटिफाई करें फर्स्ट राउंड में, जिसपे अगर हम रूरल एरियाज़ में काम करें तो वो आगे जाके $1 ट्रिलियन के लिए हमारे लिए एक माइलस्टोन साबित हो सकता है। तो मेरा सबसे पहला कंपोनेंट है ह्यूमन रिसोर्स को ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट में कन्वर्ट करना।
हमारे पास अवेयरनेस की कमी है, स्किल्ड की कमी है, टेक्नोलॉजी की कमी है, मार्केट लिंकेज की कमी है। तो अगर हम इन सारी चीज़ों को अपने ग्रामीण स्तर पे अगर उसको इम्प्रूव कर लें तो मुझे लगता है कि कंट्री के इकोनॉमी को बहुत अच्छे से बढ़ाया जा सकता है।
4000 दीदियाँ जो काम कर रही हैं, राशन बना रही हैं, वही दीदियाँ स्वयं इसकी बेनिफिशरी हैं। उन्हीं या तो वो गर्भवती महिलाएं स्वयं हैं या उनके बच्चों को पोषण मिल रहा है। वो दीदियाँ अपने बच्चों को कैसे खाना खराब देंगी? जब ये तर्क रखा गया तब कोर्ट को में कहना पड़ा कि ठीक है, ऑल राइट, इफ यू हैव गिवन विंग्स टू दीज दीदीज, लेट देम फ्लाई हाई इन द स्काई। उनको हवा में, आसमान में ऊंचा उड़ने दो, जितना ऊंचा उड़ सकती उड़ने दो।
परिप्रेक्ष्य में आज के परिवेश में अत्यधिक महत्वपूर्ण है, और महत्वपूर्ण होने के साथ साथ इसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन सबका सहयोग मांगता है। एक्चुअली जन सामान्य का भी सहयोग हो, सब समझें इस विषय को, और तब जा करके राजनीतिक व्यक्ति भी समझें, प्रशासनिक व्यक्ति भी समझें, और तब जा करके ये इम्प्लीमेंट हो पाएगा।
Should be very, very careful when these invisible changes become visible to us. When we start, feeling the heat, when we start feeling the temperature, when we start feeling the health hazards, जो कैंसर आज इतना हो रहा है, अब लोग कहने लग गए हैं ये We used to have a diabetic capital, now it is a cancer capital पूरे वर्ल्ड में। अब 10 में से 4 लोगों को, 3 लोगों को, 5 लोगों को कैंसर होने लगा है। These are all linked to green economy, green transition.
जब पानी लेने हम जाते थे तब पानी का महत्व हम समझते थे। आज पानी हमारे पास नल से घर में जब आने लगा, हम उसकी कदर नहीं करते हैं। बहुत ही सही बात इन्होंने कहा। क्या डेवलपमेंट हम लोगों को प्रकृति को अवमानना करने के लिए फॉर्डर देता है? ये सोचने वाली बात है।
गांव पे आप आज वेस्ट डिस्पोजल और वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट की बात कर रहे हैं। क्या 100 साल पहले आप ये बात करते थे? आप नहीं करते थे। क्यों? पहले हमारा कंजम्पशन पैटर्न और पहले जो हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था थी और पहले जो हमारा रहन सहन का तरीका था, उसमें वेस्ट डिस्पोजल जैसा कोई प्रोडक्ट नहीं था।
Before we move forward, I'd like to take a moment to mark an important milestone in today's dialogue: the launch of a collaborative white paper that captures both the intent and the urgency of our shared efforts in rural development. Titled Investing in Tomorrow, the need for realigning CSR spends with district development, this white paper is a joint effort by Sambodhi Research, who've been impact evaluation leaders in the area of social development, and the Development Intelligence Unit. The paper examines a critical question: are CSR funds being directed towards the districts that need them the most? Despite a decade of mandatory CSR under the Companies Act, spending patterns remain heavily concentrated in industrialized states, closely mirroring the locations of corporate offices and manufacturing hubs. This geographic skew leaves behind many rural districts, particularly in low-income or underdeveloped regions, that could benefit most from this targeted CSR investment. To evaluate this, the study introduces the Rural Quality of Life Index, which shows a disconnect between CSR allocations and development needs. To walk us through the insights and thinking behind this work, I'm happy to invite Manmeet Kaur, a research manager at Sambodhi, to the stage. Manmeet works at the intersection of data and public policy with deep experience across Sambodhi and Development Intelligence Unit. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Thank you, Sohani. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of such an august audience. All right, I'll start by setting the context. India's CSR landscape presents a paradox. With over 300 billion rupees allocated in financial year 2023 alone, we have substantial resources, no doubt about it. However, our analysis reveals 4 critical challenges. First, there's significant geographical skew. For instance, Maharashtra alone received more than 2,000 crore rupees in CSR in financial year 2021, accounting for nearly 15% of the total CSR investments. In contrast, low-income districts or low-income states like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Odisha, MP, and other northeastern states, that is the regions which have greatest development deficits, they remained underfunded. Ironically, these 5-6 states accounted for over 60% of India's aspirational districts, but they received less than 20% of the total CSR pool that year. Second, we see sector-specific concentration, where majority funds target education, healthcare, poverty, while critical areas like natural resource management, livelihoods, environment, they continue to be underfunded. Third, there's a concerning lack of impact assessments or evaluation mechanisms. Several corporates still rely on output metrics rather than impact metrics to assess the effectiveness of their investments. And finally, we see that companies sometimes replicate government schemes or other CSR projects, leading to inefficiencies and poor coordination. So we see there's a clear lack of strategic coordination or planning that results in interventions which are often disconnected from the actual community needs. So our proposition is clear, that there is a need to reframe CSR for equitable development to address regional disparities and ensure inclusivity for underserved populations. So we are making a case to use publicly available data to design investment strategies for CSR so that we can prioritize these underdeveloped or underserved geographies and also to eventually evaluate these investments over time. So what is an ideal situation? What is an ideal strategy? Ideally, in an ideal situation, geographies with low development profiles should attract the largest share of the CSR, and those areas that are already highly developed should attract the least. So schematically, we would have this kind of a matrix, right? Where there's low CSR spending and a low development profile, that's the least desirable strategic investment. But a district or a geography that has low CSR spending, but has high development profile, that's the most desirable. So, by focusing on quality of life, the intervention is to take the idea is to take a broad and holistic view of every state's development status over its space. We all know that for decades, income has been the prime indicator of quality of life. But with the changing world, with the changing scenarios, there's a need to take a more holistic approach to this. So, we all know that there are more parameters, there are more thematic areas like health, education, governance, political participation, and so on that define the quality of life in today's time. So RQL, the Rural Quality of Life Index, this is a weighted composite index that has been developed as a measure that uses administrative data from 13 different public sources, and it has more than 70 indicators across 9 pillars or 9 thematic areas, so to say. For example, health and nutrition, education, social security, climate and climate resilience and sustainability, so on and so forth. And for this analysis, the relative score for each rural district within a state or a union territory is based on the relative position with other districts in the same state. So basically, we're not doing a cross-state comparison. We're looking at the districts of the same state to look at their relative standing within that state. So if you look at UP, you will see that that the majority of the districts are in medium or in low category, and only 10 out of the 72 or 73 districts are in the high category. If we come to CSR spending, we have looked at the CSR fund allocation over the last 5 years. The National CSR portal does not disaggregate the investments by rural or urban. So we have made 2 considerations here. First, we considered only those districts that have more than 50% of their resident population as rural to make them more comparable. And second, we have looked at CSR spending data in the sectors that have primarily rural focus. For example, poverty, eradicating hunger, sanitation, rural development projects, or natural resource management projects. So something like slum development has not been considered because that would primarily have a urban or a peri-urban focus. Again, we divided the states or categorized the districts into 3 categories: low, medium, and high, depending on their relative position within that state. So again, if you look at UP's picture, there is only one state that falls in the highest category. The bulk of the districts fall in the low or the medium category. But if you overlap these two, the quality of life and the CSR spending per capita that the state or the districts have received, so to say, this is what the picture looks like. 53% of the districts in the state fall in the somewhat desirable category. 21% of the districts fall in the least desirable category, which means these are the districts that we need to target in terms of our next investment strategy. Similarly, if you want to look at the entire country, we did that exercise for UP. If you do it for the entire country, this is what the picture looks like. 23% of the districts show a complete mismatch, where high development areas are receiving high funding, while 47% have partial mismatches, and 30% of the districts have desirable targeting. If you look at this, most states exhibit mismatches, with only a few states that demonstrate equitable investments that align with the development needs. Let me walk you through a use case. If you look at the districts in UP, we've looked at their population, we've looked at their per capita CSR expenditure, we've looked at their quality of living status. So, we highlighted a couple of districts that are clearly a mismatch, right? We'll take the case of Balrampur here. When you look at its pillar scores, agriculture, economic ability, education, gender, so on and so forth, and if you look at its performance you'll see that among its entire state, it's some of the least ranked across all the thematic areas. It's the last in overall ranking. In education and gender, it's the 3rd last in economic ability. So these rankings reveal critical gaps in the development, signaling where the CSR investments could be prioritized to drive equitable outcomes. You can also see how there are other thematics also where it is performing so low. Let's continue with economic ability for the next slide. So if you see here, key indicators like vocational training access, SHG loan uptake, they are well below state averages. We have looked at the state average figures and we have looked at Balrampur's performance, and we are comparing that here. Only 6% of villages, they have training centers compared to the state's 22%. So these gaps highlight priority areas for CSR investments, clearly showcasing how RQL data or public data in general can guide targeted interventions to address specific deficits. So I want to leave you with 2 key takeaways here. 1, CSR investments that are grounded in evidence, they are more likely to achieve equitable outcomes. And secondly, public data enables strategic targeting of underserved areas, addressing real gaps. But more than these two takeaways, I want to leave you with a larger question to ponder. That with the given implementation challenges and policy barriers, what kind of environment or ecosystem enabling factors do we need to enable such strategic and a more responsive CSR? Thank you. I'll just check my notes. So we have more than 300 billion rupees last year. This is for 23-24. And also, the RQL, the Rural Quality of Life Index that we developed, that's a publicly and it's an open source platform. So I would request all of you to take a look and see how we can strategize our investments going forward. And you can also play around with the data, do your own analysis to come up with more insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Manmeet, for that thought-provoking presentation. I believe I'm right in saying that you've left us with much to think about. We now proceed with the release of the white paper titled Investing in Tomorrow, the Need for Realigning CSR Spends with District Development. May I request Dr. Akshay Patra from DIU and Manmeet to come forward for the unveiling. May I also request Mr. Ajay Pandey, partner and co-founder of Think Through Consulting, Mr. Arnab Mandal, lead strategy and impact Tata Trusts, Mr. Anupam Bajpai, head CSR of JK Tires, Dr. Monica Banerjee, head of Interglobal Foundation, and Dr. Aishwarya Mahajan, managing trustee and president of M3M Foundation, to come to the stage for the unveiling. There's also QR codes present on everybody's tables. So if anybody wants to read or go through the white paper, please scan the QR codes present on your table. Thank you, Manmeet and Dr. Akshay. May I ask the panelists to stay back? We will now begin the first discussion panel of the day, Investing Where It Matters, Realigning CSR for Rural India's Future. To begin the session, I'm pleased to introduce our moderator, Ajay Pandey, co-founder of Think Through Consulting, where he leads the firm's development sector and CSR advisory. With over 2 decades of experience in corporate responsibility and social impact consulting, Ajay has been instrumental in shaping strategies that connect boardroom priorities with grassroots realities. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And good morning, all of you. I've been told that we have approximately 30 minutes for this discussion. So you know, I was planning to have a discussion of around 60 minutes, so I will need to be curtailed a little bit. So that's a message to all my esteemed panelists that we will need to adapt. There is a possibility that someone from the government, senior officer, will be here, and that's the reason why we will need to close this by 11:30. You know, this release of the paper and the presentation beforehand kind of set a context to why we are here, and the topic for this panel discussion is quite apt, which is investing where it matters. And we are talking about corporate social responsibility. There is a history to it. 2014, 2013, in fact, when the CSR Act came into place, it was implemented and it was operationalized from 2014. I have some data, they presented a data, but if you see, total CSR investment nearly tripled in last 10 years. In 2015, it was somewhere around 9,000, 10,000 crores. Now in 2024, it is around 30,000 crore as presented earlier. In 2025, the expected value of CSR investment in India would be around 35,000 crores. We all understand and we all know that most of bulk of these investments have been in the education and health segments. That has remained a priority. Although environment sustainability, there is slight increase from 10% to 13%. So, but not as compared with health and education related expenditure. In terms of geographies, of course, your paper presented very well the scenario that we are in. Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat remains the top states in terms of recipient of the CSR funding. And that also goes with the fact that these are the states which are most industrialized, which has mostly the presence of the corporations, their offices, their production is focused there. In 2024, we see while regional diversities persist, but we have, there are small trends which are emerging from CSR expenditure also. There's a lot more strategic investments within CSR. I have been consulting for a long time. What used to be mostly transactional nature of CSR expenditure, I have seen companies, not just the multinational companies, but also Indian companies that earlier used to look at CSR as a burden or a compliance requirement. They have now started looking at it more strategically, and that was anticipated. I think it's kind of the behavioral aspect for corporates as well. New focus areas like livelihood, climate action, there's a lot of focus that we see now emerging, and companies are talking about these aspects. Long-term projects, 3 years plus, which earlier, when it started in 2015 or so, was very limited. People were usually looking at 1 year project, and they were kind of signing contracts every year, even if it is a project is going beyond. But then the rules also were amended quite a lot, and now we are seeing that long-term projects, 3 years plus, 5 years project, there is a increase in those type of projects. Overall conclusion, CSR spending in India has grown both in size and complexity. However, the benefits remain unevenly distributed if you are looking at it from geographic or thematic lens. Companies are aligning more closely with national development goals, so there is a scope for increased impact by diversifying investment and targeting underserved regions and sectors. I have a pool of esteemed panelists today. Dr. Monica Banerjee from Interglobe Foundation. She heads the foundation. She leads the CSR and philanthropic arm of Interglobe Enterprises. and she holds a doctorate in gender and governance from IIT Delhi, was a J.N. Tata Scholar at London School of Economics, and she also co-founded Council for Social and Digital Developments and serves at the board of Charkha. So, I would like all of you to please welcome Dr. Monica Banerjee on the panel. We have Mr. Arnab Mandal, who is lead strategy and operations Tata Trust. Arnab is a seasoned sustainable development practitioner since last 1 decade. He has been working at Tata Trust largely in the area of research, strategy, and impact measurement. Arnab in the past has been invited to the UN headquarters in New York, US Congress in Washington, D.C., and National Parliament of Germany as part of international delegations, and he is an alumnus of FU Berlin, TERI, IIT Delhi, and IIEST Shibupur. Welcome to the panel, Arnab. Dr. Aishwarya Mahajan, Managing Trustee and President M3M Foundation, and a very good friend. Dr. Mahajan, a sociology PhD, more than 25 years of global experience. He led community-owned sustainable development program across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Europe. Has worked with multiple organizations, UN agencies, international NGOs, CSR foundations, governments, presented at global forums like the University of Jyväskylä. Yeah, sorry for that, Finland. And, I am really honored to welcome you, Dr. Aishwarya. And Mr. Anupam Bajpayee, General Manager, CSR, JK Tyre and Industries Limited. Mr. Anupam Bajpayee brings more than 23 years of experience in CSR, sustainability, and rural development. He currently leads CSR at JK Tyre and working on initiatives in water, sanitation, livelihood, skill development. He holds a PG diploma from Symbiosis and has completed the ISCS CSR certification. Welcome, Anupam. All the questions that we have, kind of in our gut, since we are 30 minutes, I would like the audience to write down those questions and pass on the chit because we may not have time to open the floor. So pass on the chit and maybe someone can pass those over to me so that I can, while moderating, I can include those questions. I don't guarantee including all of them, but we will try and see if we can answer some of those questions. So I will initiate the discussion for today. Hello. So, one of the burning questions that everyone is asking today is why CSR projects, programs are so geographically skewed, right? And I would like to start with you, Monica. There are different lenses to look at this, right? When I used to talk with board members of the companies, we are also a biased group here because we all have been practitioners. We have worked in the area, we have worked in the sector. But when you talk about with the board, they say, this is not what we do. This is not why we exist. Okay, we are doing it, but this is not our responsibility. We are doing it for something else. I mean, that kind of, we consistently hear. So I would like to understand why this is happening with so much of, where people are calling it rural inequity in terms of CSR investment distribution. What really happens at the board level and how can we correct it? So I will go with this question first you and then Dr. Aishwarya.
So this happens.
You have to press it. Keep it pressed for some.
This is better. So this happens when you are in a minority, and in this panel, gender-wise, I am in the minority. इसलिए बीच में बिठाया है ताकि दिखूं भी. Anyways, namaskar, adab, or if only I had the answer to this question, and I would have loved to answer that. But absolutely in agreement with Ajay and also what Manmeet said when she was making that brilliant presentation a little while ago. Boards would have their own answers, particularly corporate boards, because the interest of the corporate is business, it is profit. CSR is a very recent phenomenon. It is only 10 years old. What is 10 years? Until 2018 or 2019, we didn't even have, allow me to say that, intent probably. We thought that a law has been passed and we would get away. Maybe the amendments came into place, it was around 2018 or 19, when people had to start looking at CSR in a more focused way. And that is when people like us, who are traditionally from the civil society, voluntary sector, made their inroads into CSR. Why, Ajay, the boards are still unequal in their distribution of CSR is something that, for me also, I would ponder on that ever since I joined the CSR 4 years back. But what I know is that this intent, the willingness has to happen in the CSR space, and it's already there. People like all of us in the panel and many of our colleagues, whosoever are joining that space of CSR, they are also talking about how to make development more sustainable. You talk about rural inequity, I'm saying it's geographical inequity. And it's true, Northeast, just take Northeast, I think Manmeet also pointed it. Northeast receives only 3% of the total CSR. And if you combine it with many other states, then it's 20% of where 60% should actually go. So this is something that CSR has to grapple with, and thankfully your attention has come to CSR, because now CSR is that happening zone. We are a shrinking space in terms of civil society's brush with monies. The foreign donors or the institutions who we had known as traditional philanthropies are receding, but of course with the exception of Azim Premji Foundation and the Tata Trust. But this is a question which has begun at the right time. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Ashwarya.
I think I'll take from where, Monica has said. See, corporates, again, governed by the rule book, which goes. So you have to follow that. But at the same time, it again depends on the leadership, who is there. So now, I can give you my example. When I joined the M3M Foundation, I was also thinking that from civil society, getting into a corporate, foundation, how it is going to work. Because it's like, okay, it's a top-down approach. You will govern by what is there, what the benefit business is going to have. So somewhere you say that, okay, corporates are using their marketing budget for CSR. Correct. So this is how, it has been notioned. So that's how it gets skewed, but not. Yes, if the right intent is there, if we are looking into that. So with our foundation, when I joined, there was a discussion, what should we do? Again, the same strategy. ये हमारा प्लांट यहाँ पर है, या हमारा कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस यहाँ पर है, इसके बाहर इतनी दूरी में कर दो, अच्छा वहाँ पक्की सड़क है अगर किसी को ले जाना है घुमाने के लिए. It has become sometime tourism, I say, sorry to say that, कि अरे आपको विजिट पे जाना है, वहाँ पे जाने के लिए पक्की सड़क है, गाड़ी जा सकती है, कोई अच्छा होटल है ठहरने के लिए. So that becomes the problem. And when you govern by these things, then you want to decide, अरे बगल में कर लो. And that's where when Manmeet was presenting her data, it reflects in that कि आपके डेवलपमेंट, जहाँ डेवलपमेंट की जरूरत नहीं है वहाँ डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है, वहाँ पे फंडिंग आपकी सबसे ज़्यादा जा रही है, जहाँ है नहीं वहाँ 30% हम लगा कर बैठे हैं. So that is how. So I personally feel it's basically the mindset. Second thing is the leadership. Those who are getting into I see when you say corporate social responsibility is very important. So if you become responsible with these things, I think then only it is going to be addressed. Otherwise we'll be sitting like panelists everywhere, यही चीजें हम डिस्कस करते रहेंगे, फिर अगली बार आकर बैठेंगे, मनमीत 5 साल बाद रिसर्च करके आएगी, फिर वही प्रेजेंट करेगी, सर 30 से 33% हो गया, very good. So I'm not sure, but it is required, and people like those who are in the leadership positions, they need to push to the management. And I am grateful, I am thankful to my management. They have listened. We are working in Nubra Valley, we are working in Lahore Spiti, we are working in Nilgiris in Tamil Nadu. We don't have any projects there for business. We are working in Tavdu, which is the aspirational district. 80 panchayats, we don't have any projects there. We are working. और जहाँ हमारा बिजनेस है, आई थिंक हम वहाँ पर कोई 20% के आसपास खर्च कर रहे हैं, रेस्ट 80 is going that side. So I think that's the idea.
That's great. Oh, thank you, Dr. Aishwarya and Dr. Monica. One thing which I wanted to add here is, I am looking at it from an outsider's perspective. So, in India, development funding, there used to be a very different model of development funding. 20 years back, most of these funds used to come from mostly European and some American countries. Most of it used to be bilateral, and somewhere international foundations, international NGOs, which used to have their liaison office, branch office here in India. There were still international organizations, and we have still a lot of those international organizations that has now become Desi. So they have been Indianized. But the funding that used to come from abroad has shrunk. So there is a growing dependence on Indian corporates for those funding, those type of funding. But the kind of systems and processes that is required and that they used to follow in terms of the entire funding dynamics with corporations, it is still a work in progress, because there are still SOPs being developed. There are still people focusing on theory of change, looking into how $1 can really get some kind of outcomes. You mentioned about output metrics versus impact metrics. So those are still some challenges. So I'll go to you, Anupam, and you have traveled across, you have seen across. I'll go to Arnab and then I'll come to you, Anupam. How do you see this growing dependence, and I would say interdependence, from the civil society for the corporate, because you are, with Tata Trust. How do you see, and Tata Trust has been there for long, so how do you see that kind of changing over time, and how does this make CSR even more, I would say, need for having more responsible governance, strategy and all that in dealing with all of this? Because here is also a crux to what corrective action we can take.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Ajay. So before I answer to your query, let me cite a few data points. I think, and also some context that Dr. Mahajan mentioned. So essentially, if you look at overall social sector spending as per the Economic Survey of India latest data, is 25 lakh crore, which is basically $295 billion. So that's the government social sector spending. What is CSR spending last year? So as per the data by National CSR Portal, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, is $4 billion. And which is essentially, less than 2%, right? So 2%, I mean, the ratio if you look at social sector spending and CSR. Coming to the point that fortunately, I'm representing an organization and also a group in this forum which is responsible for spending around 10% of that $4 billion. So which is 400 million if I look at Tata Trust, which is philanthropic capital, plus CSR spending from Tata Steel, TCS, etc. Cumulatively, I would say is around $400 million. So that's the fortunate part. However, one may argue, is this enough? No, absolutely not. But are we doing it? Yeah, we have been doing it. I mean, Tata Trust has a history of legacy of more than 130 years. And interestingly, I think what Dr. Mahajan mentioned, that there has to be intent. So if your heart and mind and soul are at the right place, you will essentially do it. So there has to be very strong moral compass, and essentially the founder of Tata Group, Mr. Jamsetji Tata, he coined a term called compassionate capitalism. So essentially, in this forum, I don't want to get into a debate, especially being a Bengali, don't want to, I've heard the discussion on communism. So no discussion on capitalism versus communism. The discussion is on what kind of model of development. So Mr. Jamsetji Tata said that India should follow the model of compassionate capitalism. And he said that many years ago, right? Essentially centuries ago. But has India done it? I don't think so. But Tata, whatever Tatas have been doing is a global case study. I mean, I don't have to reintroduce. Everybody knows. The thing is, so I think there has to be intent at the board level for sure. It's very, very extremely strong moral compass, principles driven. And now coming to the point that how do you see the landscape changing? So essentially, if you look at today, the development landscape is changing for sure. And if you look, you have rightly mentioned earlier there used to be significant amount of funding from bilateral donor agency, multilateral, foreign philanthropy, etc. And now that this $4 billion CSR is kind of plugging in. In addition to that, I can also see some sort of impact investing capital, which is also coming, right? So there have been a plethora of impact fund that has been set up. Some of them are homegrown, some of them are getting funding from abroad, etc. So that is also happening. So I think one way is that because the landscape is anyway changing, okay, so which is change is the only constant. My sense is that collaboration. So social change is very tough, extremely, extremely tough. All of us know that. But if you look at today, if you talk to government functionaries, if you talk to corporates, if you talk to impact funds, if you talk to foreign philanthropists, if you talk to multilateral, bilateral agencies, UN agencies, etc., they all will say collaboration is the key. And so therefore you need to create platforms. So fortunately, we have been able to create some of those platforms. So for example, we have created India Health Fund. We have created India Climate Collaborator. We have created a plethora of non-profit organizations in different parts of the country. For some of you are familiar, Himothan, etc. In fact, TRI, this organization also has some sort of Genesis connection with Tata Trust. Having said that, I think this kind of collaborative platform need to come into the picture where different type of actors can give financial resource and non-financial resource, and then the change might happen. That's the way I would see it.
So Anupam, my previous question, but I would also want to raise another topic, and after you I will come to Monica, and we'll go around. In terms of what he raised, in terms of pooling of funds, we were having that conversation as well. So like to have your perspective, how corporates can pool funds for better outreach and better impact.
Thank you. First of all, actually, good morning to all of you. Monica ji mentioned that she is in minority. I can say actually I am sitting between two doctors. So what should I say? Anyway, just actually what actually the discussion which you have started. Actually, all time blaming corporate will also not be right actually. Perhaps they also have very solid reasons. If you are bit actually, suppose as a JK Tire, because I am representing to that company, if I have a plant in Morena in Madhya Pradesh, I know it is not actually falling under aspirational district, but all of you know that Morena is known for what actually all the bad reasons or not so good reasons as such. Lot of actually requirement, even if you don't do the CSR initiatives, and actually in place of Morena, if I plan out the CSR initiatives in some other areas, definitely more needy and this all, perhaps something what we call this social license to operate, वो बड़ा मुश्किल से मिलेगा वहाँ से, और बरेना में तो फिर बहुत ही मुश्किल हो जाएगी. I think what Mahajan sir was mentioning about road and this all, definitely उस पे तो जरूर रोक होनी चाहिए. But there are certain solid reasons. What actually we have done for this, we are trying to make a balance, and how this balance is being made. First of all, the initiatives, they are very much need based, means where actually are, because we are a manufacturing based company, so wherever at 5 locations we are present there, so whatever the need of the nearby people, again I think someone has mentioned about also कि कितनी दूरी लेनी है, कितनी दूर के और कितने उसके बाद के नहीं लेने हैं. So considering all those factors, we find out that what are the needs of that area. Based on that we plan out the activities. But in addition to that, actually coming to this, that what we are doing for other locations like Northeast, because we have taken up different sustainability based proposals. Like we are, rubber is also something very important. Without this, tire cannot be manufactured. So we are doing something for the rubber growers, and primarily they are from the Northeast and Kerala, so these two states. Something very important about drivers, because that is one community, because no one wants to be in this profession actually. Because the overall, working hours, the overall conditions and everything. So we are actually doing a lot of things, lot of activities for them also. Now coming to your question, actually, that what sort of participatory or collaborative way this could be. So in my opinion, if there is no collaboration, or in case there actually we are not working in a participatory way, perhaps the very purpose of the CSR that will get somewhere defeated. Let me just quote one example to you, because I have taken example of Morena. So there we have started around 6-7 years back. We have started one project on the cattle breed improvement, because this area is, as you know, after Mathura, Agra, this thing comes, and having cows and buffaloes, that is very much part and parcel of farmers' life. But the biggest challenge was that the production per animal, that was quite less, and that's why actually we were actually working on that particularly. In last 7 years, if I just share with you, there are actually more than 10,000 hybrid cows and buffaloes. They are actually in the ground. If it is just 3 liters or 4 liters additional milk production per animal, it becomes actually around 30,000 to 40,000 liters milk in that area, and that I'm talking about 100 plus villages. Since it was a very successful project, so as I was sharing with you, that without collaboration that thing may not happen. So we collaborated with NABARD, and then actually in 2022, and now actually we are implementing this project in 50-50 partnership. And I'm really happy to share with you that in those 100 plus villages, we have created really, so many good models. I think 10-15,000 rupees, that is the average increase in the household income, and this all. So this definitely I would say that this is something very important, very crucial, and it must be. I know many of the corporates will definitely have issues कि बस वो branding का बड़ा issue होता है कि where to put the logo of ours, where to put the logo of government and this all. But definitely, perhaps we have to come out from all of this, and then we have to.
Thank you, Anupam. Monica, I'll come to you. The question is around pool fund, but there is a context to it as well. Arnab mentioned the 2% thing. So just for the audience as well, when you talk about CSR is 2% of their profit. That's what the law says. So more profit means more investment, right? And more profit means the business is able to do more, and that is they are going to do. He spoke about collective or compassionate capitalism. There is also this theory around shareholder capitalism. Okay, where you are actually treating all your shareholders, you're treating community as part of your shareholders. So you do more for your shareholders, and that's what local area development, social license, etc. comes into play, which is not a wrong thing to do. Now the question is, despite all of this, our rural area needs more. But whose principal responsibility is that? And that's the Government of India. And the kind of budget that we are looking at for the Government of India, this is just a minuscule amount, whether we are talking about 30,000 crore a year. That also kind of diverse across different thematic areas. So the expectations need also be realistic from the corporations. What is it that the government needs from us? Do they need our money, or do they need something else? And that needs to be understood properly. We have around 5 minutes left. So this will be a kind of a closing remarks from each one of you, maybe 1 minute each. So pooling versus what and how we can make that difference is my final ask for a closing remark. I have questions from audience, but I will close there And if the organizers give me more time, I will go through this. I'm sorry, but my hands are tied, and they have tied my feet also. So
सर नो टू वेज अबाउट पूलिंग. ऑफ कोर्स कोलैबोरेशन की किसकी ज़रूरत नहीं है. सरकार जो माई बाप है वो उनको भी ज़रूरत है पूलिंग की आइडियाज़ के लिए, इफ़ नॉट मनीज. सो उसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है. जहाँ बात है, सी वन थिंग विच आई वुड लाइक द सिविल सोसाइटी टू स्पेल आउट वेरी क्लियरली, और कहीं पर मुझे लगता है कि अभी भी हम घुमा फिरा कर बात कर रहे हैं. हम जो बात नहीं कर रहे पूलिंग रिसोर्सेज की, CSR से आए, फिलांथ्रोपी से आए. एंड बाय द वे टाटा ट्रस्ट एंड अजीम प्रेम जी डू नॉट हैव CSR मनीज, दे हैव फिलांथ्रोपिक मनीज. 2% से बहुत ऊपर की सोचते हैं वो, और 2% में कभी रहे नहीं हैं वो. तो दैट्स फिलांथ्रोपी, एंड दिस इज द ट्रांजिशन दैट इंडियन कॉर्पोरेट्स नीड टू मेक फ्रॉम CSR टू फिलांथ्रोपी. 2% में नहीं अटक के और अपने दिल और दिमाग से सोचे, दिल को खोले और 2% से कहीं ज़्यादा दे, तो ही वो गवर्नमेंट के रिसोर्सेज, मॉनेटरी रिसोर्सेज से मैच कर पाएगी. दैट्स ऑल आई हैव टू से. बट वेयर आई एम सेइंग, व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज दैट CSR's pooling responsibility has to engage with CSC, which means civil society's challenges. आप हमारे पास 20 पार्टनर्स हैं, सब आप जैसे बड़े पार्टनर्स हैं. TRI, Srijan, ANT, Gram Vikas, this and that. What is required is number of those small NGOs which have which are facing the brunt of extinction today.
They should also come together.
Yes. So it is you big CSOs who have to be mother NGOs to all these chotu organizations who are facing the brunt of extinction today.
Yeah. Great. Dr. Aishwarya.
No, I think that's the wonderful say what she said. So it is basically coming out with rural impact social responsibility. So if we come together, we pool our resources. When you say resources, it's not only about money. What she said is also the knowledge which has been created in different parts, the models which has been experimented. बहुत अच्छे छोटे छोटे मॉडल्स हैं. कोई 20 गाँव में, लेकिन उसको कहीं हाईलाइट नहीं किया जा रहा है, वो आ नहीं रहा है. How we can bring those this thing. So if we can do design something like that, if collective of organization, those who are sitting here can take the responsibility and design a framework like white paper you have come out. So we can come out with a strategy paper that this is how we want to see the rural India or rural transformation take place. And if we can come together, funding is not an issue. We are anyway spending that. It's the intent again from the government side. Management, the leaders can always discuss and they can convince them. Thing is, वो जो अभी इन्होंने बोला अनुपम जी ने, मेरा लोगो तेरा लोगो अगर हम हटा देंगे, तो I think that's something we can come out with one simple policy.
Well said. Well said. Anup.
Okay. So I think I would answer your query in two-pronged approach. So one is, if you look at top 50% spending, so which is $4 billion ka 50%, which is $2 billion, right? That has come from top 50 CSR spenders. And interestingly, 50% of top 50 is PSU, which is government owned, right? So essentially I'm saying, A, government social sector spending is huge, all of us know. B, even within the CSR space, government controlled companies are responsible for a huge amount of CSR pool, right? And then therefore, to make the transition shift to essentially ensuring that lot of fund flows to east, northeast and central belt, which is currently is not receiving adequate amount of attention. So essentially for the government it's not very difficult, let me tell you. Okay, so essentially they can invite the CMDs of the top 50 PSUs and then they can essentially do it. So that's one approach. Second approach is that essentially the non-PSU companies, what they can do. One is, I think there has to be transfer of best practices. So for example, we long before CSR was a mandate, we have been doing something, right? So some credible work, some experiences, some best practices we anyway have. But let me tell you, none of the corporate in India has come to us कि tell कि आप मुझे थोड़ा बताइए. We're ready to give that knowledge free. आप ले लो हमसे वो knowledge. Nobody has come because nobody is interested to take that. So I think what Dr. Mahajan has said, that essentially the corporates, for example, people will say what Bill Gates is saying. Now, Bill Gates, an American philanthropy, who is the founder of Gates Foundation, will say something from his perspective. But you should actually learn from some of the examples from India only, right? So I think that best practice learning need to happen for sure. And second is, I also feel that today government has created some platform like social stock exchange. So if we figure out a way through some sort of instrument to flow to ensuring some sort of CSR funding going to social stock exchange or maybe social venture, etc.
Looking at more innovative models.
Correct.
Thank you. Anupam.
Actually, I think I agree with all the fellow panelists, what all has been talked about, collaborations, collaboratives. Definitely, both the things, they are very, very critical, very crucial. In addition to that, I just want to add on to one more thing, that the grassroots institutions, perhaps somewhere actually, whenever we implement the CSR initiatives and this all, somewhere actually, I think that thing comes actually in the end. Even with the NGOs also, where actually you will be discussing. So perhaps as soon as it is about establishing an FPO or something, it's all right. But actually to sustain that thing, that is perhaps the biggest challenge and this all. So this is what actually we have seen, and we have also been struggling with this. But this is what actually we believe, that until and unless we are going to work on these type of grassroots initiatives who can take those things forward, whatever the money we are going to spend, eventually it has to be sustainable. So that I think would be very critical, very crucial. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been reminded once again to wrap up. Thank you all my panelists, Dr. Aishwarya, Anupam, Dr. Monica, Arnab, and thank you to Sheetal and the organizer, Neeraj. I have these questions, but my apologies, I'm not able to take these questions as of now. Once again, thank you for listening to us, and this is a discussion that will continue. So once again, thank you.
A huge thank you to all our moderators and panelists for such a sharp, grounded and forward-looking discussion. If you could all just join me in giving them a huge round of applause again. And thank you to our speakers, because you've reminded us and helped us reimagine what it is possible, what's possible when CSR becomes truly catalytic. I would like to ask the panelists to stay back as we present them with a small token of our appreciation. Thank you.
Can I just make one small request? Because we deal with environment and livelihoods, so just one small thing. This is to IIC. I have repeatedly requested them. ये जो single-use plastic bottles हमारे हर table पे होता है, इसको तो हम ख़त्म कराएं, please. कांच के bottles बार-बार use कर सकते हैं. So environment पे बात करते हैं, शुरुआत अपने से करें. Thank you.
And with that, we'll now take a short tea break. Please feel free to use the time to keep the dialogue going and connect with each other. We invite you all to join us back here in 10 minutes for our second panel discussion, Future of Work, Reimagining Skills for Rural Youth. Thank you all for being here. See you in 10 minutes.